December 10th, 2024. Well, I've been gone for a little while because I had a pretty bad cold, but I'll go ahead and try to do a video now. And lots happened during the time. Particularly, a big focus had been on the Syrian situation, which has really blew up very rapidly. And I think just a couple of days ago, kind of came to a conclusion with the fall of Damascus. It wasn't really a siege of Damascus; it was just a fall. The Basically the Syrian army basically just evaporated, apparently under the the attack by rebel groups led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham or something like that. HTS, it goes by as initials. Let's just use that. I'm probably trying to pronounce the Arab name. I'll mess it up. And anyhow, and the leader of this group is a terrorist who has a $10 million bounty by the U.S. on his head. He formally comes out of Al Qaeda in Iraq, I guess, and then moved on to the al-Baghdadi's ISIS group as his number two, and then now he's leading this group. And the word is that he's a reformed man. He's not chopping people's heads off anymore, allegedly. He's kind of gone away from that sort of thing. And so, well, can we take his word for it? I don't know. It seems like a bunch of people in Syria seem to be overjoyed with the situation. They may find out, sort of like the people in Iran many years ago who were overjoyed by the fall of the Shah, only to find out that something worse than the Shah was taking over, and I guess they maybe haven't caught on to that yet. So far, apparently, at least the guy has improved his PR over his head chopping days. So we'll see what happens. And of course, Assad managed to make it to Moscow and escape. I don't know how happy Moscow is with him really at this point, because apparently a fair number of Russian troops and military aircraft and so forth are kind of left behind in Syria, and their fate is still uncertain. I guess it's okay at the moment, but there's kind of a no man's land situation going on there, and of course, they did initially engage against these liberating groups, you want to call them that. And so that might not leave them in the best of conditions, since their allies in the Syrian army completely fled. And of course, what's going to happen to them is another question, huh? They may get hunted down too. So far, this guy is a very ecumenical jihadist, and says he's going to treat all people of all faiths fairly. Well, stay tuned in and see. But at any rate, and it seems like the West has been kind of happy with this. I guess that anything that looks bad for Russia is good for them, and so us or whatever, and so therefore they're happy about it. The Israelis, of course, responded to this situation by launching an invasion of southern Syria to take up a defensive buffer zone, and a series of airstrikes trying to destroy certain infrastructure of the former Syrian military, so it doesn't fall into the hands of these new terrorist groups. Because after all, they began to realize, ooh, we just have a whole bunch of terrorist groups taking over Syria right next to us. We got the Hezbollah group in Lebanon. Now we got all these guys. And by the way, the so-called liberators or many other groups are involved as well. It looks like a who's who of jihad kind of came in there. And so, anyway, so that's kind of the situation. By the way, if you like these videos, please give me a like. Looking for more subscriptions as always. Thanks to those that have. And of course, you can click the bell for notifications, or if you can follow me on Rumble, where's the information that's below. Yeah, so that's kind of how that is playing out at the moment. We're we're looking at see kind of what happens next in this little saga. It's the other thing, the U.S. then responded by, there's apparently still some ISIS holdouts somewhere, and we launched a whole series of airstrikes, including the use of a B-52, to pound those ISIS areas. So I guess there's still some of them around somewhere too, although presumably they weren't invited to the party, or maybe they just crashed it, I don't know. But I think the real kingpin behind this whole operation is probably Turkey. I was joking around, is this the return of the Ottoman Empire here? I mean, because Turkey seems to be the instrumental focal point of arming and equipping these people. There are allusions to CIA or MI6 or even Mossad or whatever, but they're basically in a Turkish protected area before this attack occurred. And the essence I have is that this is really a Turkish operation. I mean, I'm sure the CIA was aware of it, and I don't know, maybe they gave it a thumbs up or something, but I think it really is Erdogan's power play. And very interesting here because, well, I used to see how much control he really has over these people. Uh, I mean, does he really want to be associated with, if they go full Taliban on everybody, does he want to be associated with something like that? Or is his plan to use that as an excuse to move his own forces in there? Because I don't think this group is really all that strong, and a serious deployment of the Turkish army, let's say 50 to 100,000 troops, might change the whole balance of power pretty quickly. So we don't know whether he's going to do that. He hasn't so far. But we also are already seeing Turkish elements engaging against the Kurds, uh, which at one point, one commentator I saw was referring to this battle as becoming NATO versus NATO, because the Kurds are backed by the U.S. and so forth, and the Turks are backing the groups that's fighting the. They don't like the Kurds because they consider them terrorists, a domestic threat. So it's a complete fiasco, in my opinion. And of course, the Russians. They're kind of somewhat trapped in this area. I'm not sure how trapped they are, but they're in a sea of unfriendliness, and they have one base that's pretty deep into Syria. I won't attempt to pronounce the name, but it's over that over to the east, I guess you'd say, and the others are near the coast. And so those people probably can get to the coast. They have a sea base there, and the problem, of course, Russia's going to have some problem extracting. Maybe the Turks can help them out with this. I mean, up to now, I think there's been some control on Russian shipping, from the Black Sea into the Mediterranean because of the war in Ukraine and some treaty in 1936 about Turkey has the right to control people engaged in combat. I don't know, maybe they could make some exceptions for transport ships to ship their people back out of there. I guess the planes, if they get enough fuel for them, could just take off and fly to some other location, maybe back into Russia, probably. And the ground support people, of course, they want to get their personnel back, and so that's another issue. We'll see how that plays out. Supposedly, the leader of this group has said that the Russian embassies and military bases are secure. So. Whether that's a uniform opinion of all these groups or just some of them is another question, of course. And who knows, there could even be some Ukrainians involved in this too, for all we know. There were some distinctive armbands seen in some of the pictures, so, I mean, who knows? They didn't look like they're Ukrainian, but maybe they trained them or something. There's a lot of really interesting helicopter, FPV helicopter strikes were quite prominent in the initial assault, so they certainly have seem to have had some training from somebody. It wasn't the Russians, so guess who? So anyhow, this is quite a situation, and we'll have to kind of see where we go from here. But in the future, although Israel may be happy right now because the land bridge, of course, between Iran and Lebanon has kind of been cut. Although I don't know, I mean, maybe organized crime type shipments could still occur. Who knows? But nonetheless, the Shia are kind of in a problem, I guess. And so, because this group that's running it now are very Sunni, and so and anyhow, but that then aids Israel, and one of their big threats to the north may not get the logistics support it had been getting. On the other hand, having all these terrorists. At least ex-terrorists, I think, they've gone from terrorists to freedom fighter, whatever. Having them right on their border, well, what might be good today might be bad tomorrow. Let's put it that way. And if the Turks come in to restore order, there's been a lot of discussion, of the possibility that Turkey was very angry about all the things that was happening in Gaza and so forth. And Colonel McGregor, has been making a big point that Turkey is going to do something one of these days. And I'm like, maybe Turkey is preparing the battlefield for doing something. I mean, yeah, interesting situation for everybody concerned. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. Otherwise, of course, the Penny case in New York is finally resolved, and I have a few thoughts about that. First of all, the BLM spokesmen are clearly racist. Don't kid yourself. We're not racist for backing Penny. They're racist for being against them. And second of all, I would like to point out that this jury, this shows you the fallacies of juries, which I'm sort of critical of juries because of the concept. Because you try to get the ordinary Joe out there, try to, well, I don't know, follow all these legal concepts, and they're supposed to carry this out according to these judicial instructions. Of course, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. This time it looks like somebody was trying to. Of course, you'd have to say on the behalf of the jurors and the ordinary folk, well, what about that idiot prosecutor that ever even brought the case in the first place? So maybe we do need the common folk to kind of restore some sense here. But at any rate, I'm getting to is, not to try to be too arrogant about it, but okay, what I'm saying is the jury hung on a more serious charge of second-degree manslaughter, which could carry up to a 15-year sentence. I doubt he'd got anything close to that, but, a serious sentence. And it's a serious felony, I guess. And then the other charge was something like, reckless homicide or something like that. Anyway, I guess it's still a felony, but it's kind of a lower felony, you might say, well, at the bottom of them. A maximum of 4 years, I guess, and it could be as low as probation, depending on what the judge thought. Okay, well, they hang on the more serious charge, and so the judge finally dismisses the charge so that they could then consider the lower charge, which was criticized as being improper, and that's a legal issue that apparently. But at any rate, they go back, and the next day they decide to acquit him on the lesser charge. Somebody called the lesser included charge. So what happens is, but now he's essentially exonerated because they could have brought back on the earlier charge, the second degree manslaughter. He could have been retried on that because it was dismissed and because of the I think because of the case, it was a hung jury. But because he's been actually acquitted on the lesser included charge, you can't then go back and charge him with a more serious charge because he would have been guilty of the lesser one if, in fact, he was guilty of the higher one. So, in other words, he's off the hook legally. Now, he's going to have a lawsuit, which is another malicious thing, but hopefully, he might. I don't think he's got enough money to be that big of a target. Maybe I don't know whether he gets to keep his GoFundMe money after the legal case is over, or whether that could be attached, or whether basically that goes to something else. I don't know. Maybe that's what they're hoping to get, because they had to spend a bunch of it in his legal defense. But at any rate, he's off the hook legally, and that's great, and I'm all for it. But I just find it amazing the process that led to this. And of course, the worst of it is this idiot prosecutor. I mean, this case was purely political, and it's very left-wing Democrat political. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on that. And of course, so I'll be wrapping this up now, and I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble. And of course, the address of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for this time.